Welcome, everybody, to episode 3 of Couchside Sports. I am your host, Matt Parnell, joined alongside by my co-host and resident NFL expert, Lucas Fanslaw. We got a good show on tap here today. We're going to talk a little NFL schedule as that's been officially released for the NFL. And after we're done that, we have the NHL playoffs recap of round 2 and a little preview of the conference finals of juicy Game 7 last night. But we can get to that in a little bit. Lucas, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Rest in peace to the Leafs. I'm sorry for your loss, Tristan. Absolute tough one there last night, but hey, we still got a Canadian team in it, even if it's the Oilers.
Yeah, I'm not going to be rooting for the Oilers myself, but that's okay. Why don't we kick it off with a little NFL talk here? We can talk the schedule. I know you got some interesting facts, especially with the travel that has to be done.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you got that handy, but that was some interesting stats there looking at that. So, yeah, kick it off, Lucas.
Yeah, so they dropped the schedule. They dropped the schedule last week, and biggest surprise, Thursday night football looks fucking good, dude.
Interesting.
It looks so
It's been so bad the last few years.
Oh, it's literally been the garbage bowl.
Yeah.
But that was definitely the nicest surprise because, you know, Thursday rolls around.
That's right.
You're kind of withdrawn from the week for some football, and it's like, all right, yeah, I'll watch some Thursday night football, and then it's the fucking Seahawks to Bears ending at 6-3.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely brutal, but no, that was definitely a nice surprise, so that's got me excited. That's just kind of my first takeaway about the schedule release. Second one that I found really interesting was travel distance. I read an article the other day, and travel distance is probably the most underrated thing. You look at teams like the Bengals, Bills, Ravens. There's so many teams around them in that top southern part of the states that they don't have any travel distance, but the Chargers have 37,000 kilometers to travel.
37,000 miles, I thought you said.
Miles, yeah, sorry, my apologies.
That's even more insane.
Totally. So 37,000 miles, and the Rams have 34, and the Seahawks have 31.
Jesus.
And then you compare that to like those middle of the country teams I was talking about. The Ravens only have 10K, the Bills have 10K, and the Bengals have 8.7K. And I was reading an article on it. He's some guy who used to plan travel trips for the Niners. And when they had back-to-back games across the country, they would try and find a place with a practice facility and just rent the entire thing out for 2 weeks to try and get them acclimated to the time change, try and get them used to sleeping in a different bed, get them used to a semi used to a new schedule. So it'll be very interesting to see what effect that has on teams.
Well, I was gonna touch on that real quick. Is being a Seahawks fan for most of my life, one thing I've always noticed in the broadcast, they always talk about it, is if the Hawks go to the East Coast and they play a morning game, it's like something. I can't remember what the specific stat is on it, but it's something like a 90% chance at a loss.
Absolutely, that time change is totally brutal,
especially when you're playing a morning game. You got this 10-15 game on the East Coast, just like, you know, you're rolling out of bed normally at that time.
Oh, totally.
You know, maybe a little bit earlier, but you know, if you're me, you're rolling out of bed at 7:15 at the absolute earliest.
Totally, and I'd have to look up the number, but it's half and half teams that are going to these international games.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. One team will go 6 or 7 days in advance, and the other team will show up 2 or 3 days before.
Right.
And the team that shows up 2 or 3 days before almost always loses.
Right.
I'd have to look up the numbers on it, but obviously that doesn't really apply to the Mexico games. But
yeah, when you're talking London or you're talking Germany, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So just getting acclimated with it, I think, is one of the most underrated things. And another thing I was looking at is Baltimore, the Ravens, the Patriots, and the Titans. They have 3 road games in a row.
Whoa.
Like throughout the year at some point, they have a stretch of 3 road games in a row.
That seems like a lot.
That's a brutal gauntlet.
Yeah.
And if you look at every team that's played 3 games in a row, only 17% of them have won the 3rd game.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
so
crazy.
It'll be interesting to see how they're able to cope with that. I would imagine
You think it would be a lot less like difficult for teams on the East Coast? Like you talk about someone like or the Bengals, for example. They're only traveling 8.7 or 8,700 miles, as it would be. You think that they would have maybe a little bit of an easier time with that? But if you're talking to someone like the Seahawks, where you're traveling cross country pretty much almost every match, unless you're playing like someone in California, that's gonna wear on you. By the third week, you're gonna be roasted.
Absolutely. So, yeah, that's a brutal road game stretch for them. Once again, like I was saying, the Niners, they book out a facility and basically move across the country for however many weeks they need to. So it'll be curious to see if those teams do anything about it. But little fun fact: by the third road game, only 17% of the time does the team win.
That's crazy.
Absolutely. And then last thing I want to point out is strength of schedule. The 49ers have the easiest schedule in the league, so I'm not thrilled about that.
Yeah, that sucks.
Fucking lucky guys, big bounce back year. Did you see
Brock Purdy's $50 million contract?
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that pans out.
He's got to be the highest paid Mr. Irrelevant ever.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean that's an insane contract.
Totally.
And he's not even that great. I feel like.
Yeah.
He's like a middle of the road quarterback in the NFL? Is he not?
And numbers wise, he is, but I think it's one of those things like people were saying with Mahomes like 4 years ago when he signed his 10-year $1 billion contract at 50 mil, or sorry, not 1 billion, $500 million. At the time, he was the highest paid quarterback in the league, but people were pointing at and saying like, you got fucking Lamar coming up, you got Burrow coming up, you got Josh Allen coming up. Quarterback money is going to go absolutely crazy. So whether or not you like Purdy, just the fact you got him for 50 mil, I think is a good deal on their part. Quarterback contracts are going to go up. And even if the numbers are right and all the Purdy haters are right and he's just a middle of the road quarterback, I think 50 million 3 or 4 years from now, that'll be a half decent deal.
Well, if that's the case, I like that Sam Darnold pickup even more at $40 million for the next 3 years. With you said it was incentivized, right? A lot of incentive heavy contract or whatever. So I think that bodes well for the Seahawks as well.
Totally. But so you got the Niners, you got the Saints, and you got the Pats. So obviously the Saints and the Pats can use all the help they can get.
Yeah,
but the teams with the two hardest schedules in the league are the Giants and the Bears.
Oh my God, the poor Giants.
I
dude.
I know. It's gonna be a rough year for them. And then right after them, they got the Lions. So we'll see what the Lions can do. They lost Ben Johnson as OC.
Right.
We'll see if they can make another late season run, even with having to go through the tough gauntlet that they're going through.
I mean, they're really good. They're in that upper echelon of teams now. I think. Like I would put them in the top 5.
Oh, totally.
But
totally. It'll just be. I think the biggest unknown is how they'll cope without Ben Johnson.
Right. That's a big question mark.
Oh, huge question. And then once again, the Bears. Right,
the Bears.
Yeah, the Bears tied at the Lions. Their opponents averaged 5.71 win percentage last year.
It's not going to be an easy route for them either.
No, so they're tied for second place. So it'll be interesting to see what the Bears do.
I love watching the Bears struggle because the internet, their community is so loud and so active that it always brings in some like good moments as a neutral fan.
And them firing Eberflus mid-season last year, that made the fan base ecstatic.
Yeah.
The last time a Chicago head coach got fired mid-season was over 100 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a crazy stat.
Back in like the early 1920s, I want to say.
Wow.
Yeah, so little fun fact there. But yeah, it'll be fun to see what the Bears are able to do with the new head coach. Only thing that I'm curious how the fan base of them feels is they took a tight end with their number 1 pick.
Oh, interesting.
At pick number 10. Obviously the guy's a fucking stud, but when you have that many holes to fill, you can't help but wonder if one of the less premier skill positions is
Yeah, and
worth
how was
the number 10 pick.
How was their O-line last year?
Well, they had a terrible O-line last year, but I think this offseason they went out and got 3 fucking maulers.
Okay.
And they did overpay for all 3 of them, but that just shows the new team Ben Johnson wants.
Yeah, and you were talking even last week, like having a team where you win these Super Bowls or you win the big games a lot of the time with those guys in the trenches, right?
Oh, totally.
So that's huge for them.
Totally. And then, yeah, last thing on NFL I wanted to touch on, voting on banning the tush pushes this week.
What are your thoughts on the tush push? I hate it.
I'm okay with it, but the only reason I have animosity for it is if the defense does the same thing, it's a penalty. You can't line up behind the defensive linemen and push them.
Well, that's exactly what. So, and just so folks are aware at home, you can't push a runner forward with forward progress. Can you not? Is there not a rule against that?
No, you can push a runner forward.
Okay.
But my whole beef with it is the defense isn't allowed to do a tush push.
Okay, so the defense can counter it with their own.
Exactly. Do you remember in the NFC Championship game, the Commanders-Eagles, and the Eagles were at the 1-yard line, and Frankie Louvu kept jumping over?
That's right. And
that's because that's all you can fucking do, dude.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to push the defensive linemen.
He got 2 penalties on it, and I believe after the second one, the referee said in the stadium, they've been warned if they do it again, there will be a touchdown automatically awarded to the Eagles. So yeah, it's kind of BS. If one side can do it, the other can't, and it's turned into such a thing now. Where the one thing I do like about it, but it has turned into quite a bit of a problem because it seems to be abused a lot of the time. But the one thing I do like about it that has come out of it is there's a lot more 4th downs that are gone. Like people go for 4th down now.
True.
It's not just 3 and a punt now. Sometimes you'll even see teams they're 4th and 4, and statistically speaking, their statistician or whatever you want to call it, their performance analyst, has said technically we should be going for it on 4th down at this part of the field. So I do like that about the NFL. But specifically the tush push, a lot of the times now teams are like, yeah, we're going to go for it. We're on the 50. We're going to get a yard and a half here. Every time we're going to get a yard and a half, right?
Totally. And a thing I saw a lot of people talking heads saying about the Eagles this year was the Eagles have 3 plays to get 9 yards, and then they're guaranteed a first down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Which I thought they were going to struggle with that this year with losing Kelsey because he's the master of it, right? Or at least that's what they said. But yeah, you're right. It's just no big deal.
No, totally. But yeah, I can understand the animosity for the play. It's probably let's say the most caveman play in the NFL.
Yeah.
But end of the day, the Eagles took it to a new level. Last year they brought in that rugby coach from Scotland.
Right.
And when you're in the scrum, you're all locked up. Those guys do that
all the time.
All the time. They do it a crazy amount in that sport. They brought in the right guy to teach it. They put the right guys on the offensive line, and they're doing it well.
Yeah.
I'll just reiterate once again, if the defense could push back, I think that would definitely even out the rule.
I agree. I like that. Now, has there been any talk about doing that, or are they just specifically voting yay or nay on the tush push this week?
I think they're just voting yay or nay. I personally don't think it's going to get banned.
No.
Plus, you can look at stuff like the Bills. I forget who knocked them out of the playoffs. Was it the Ravens, I think?
Right, yeah.
They kept trying to tush push, but they sucked at it. They got stuffed 3 or 4 times that game.
Yeah.
End of the day, it can be
teams
beaten.
that struggle with it.
Yeah, 100%. End of the day, it can be beaten, but I think letting the defense do it would make it a bit of a more even playing field.
Right. It'll be interesting. It's one of those things that's obviously very it's controversial for sure, but also it's quite new in the NFL, right? It's not something we've seen for quite a while. And you're saying that the Eagles brought in this rugby coach. Well, maybe you start seeing some other teams bring it in. Maybe for the defensive side of the ball, right? How do we stop this?
Totally.
If they do ever allow that being able to push the defensive lineman in, I think that'll make it a lot more even, and you'll probably see a lot less teams go for it.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, maybe the NFL likes it the way it is. promotes more offense.
Totally. A couple of years ago, I forget his name, but the Giants brought in like some guy who played rugby for New Zealand to try out for the offensive line.
Yeah.
Actually turned into something.
Yeah, there you go.
We got to start thinking internationally.
And there was a rugby kicker in the league for a while too. I can't remember his name now.
Was there?
Or what team he played on. I'd have to look that up. Let me look that up here, but I'm almost positive.
Would he do the drop kick?
He did the drop kick.
Kick?
Yeah, he did the drop kick on the punts, and it was wild to see.
Oh, that's crazy. What do you think about the international games? Like, do you like them shipping overseas?
I don't love it. I think I would like it more if it was like maybe like a season opener, or if it was preseason. I have no problem with the preseason. I don't think they want to take away from their season openers a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, but who was it last year? It was like Jacksonville and somebody else that was kind of irrelevant.
They definitely send some bumfuck games over there.
Yeah, which is probably for the best because A, you don't want to jade your own fans.
Yeah.
And B, those games probably sell way more merch. They're always a sellout. They're going to sell more liquor. Like, they're going to make big bucks on those games.
Yeah.
People are in a frenzy. They want to see those rivalry matchups, right?
Plus, doesn't stadiums like Tottenham fit over 100,000 people?
Yeah, well, I don't know. Do they play at Tottenham's new stadium or do they play at Wembley?
No, they're at Tottenham this year.
They're at Tottenham this year? Yeah, so I don't know what Tottenham just got a new stadium not too long ago. I want to say it's either a year or two old. Yeah. They used to play at Wembley, which is, if people don't know at home, that's like the national stadium for the England team.
Okay.
So anyways, and they play like some like cup finals there at Wembley and whatnot. So I think there it was 100,000. I'm almost positive Wembley is 100,000. I don't know what Tottenham's new stadium is, but it's definitely got to be above 70,000 for sure. Like,
totally.
I've been to a couple of Premier League games over in England. One of them at Anfield back in the day, which is Liverpool's home stadium. And even back then, I want to say it was 50,000. And Anfield is a smaller stadium in comparison to like the bigger teams. Like, Liverpool is one of the top 5 teams in England. This year they won the league. Shout out the Reds. Yeah, I think that's probably one benefit is those 100,000 seaters. They're probably making mad ticket revenue from that.
Totally, and I just bring that up because I'm pretty sure the biggest NFL stadium is only 90,000, I want to say.
There you go.
Did you find that kicker?
I'm looking right now. It says there's 2 rugby players transferred to the NFL have been successful kickers. Not common, but it does happen. It says Gary Anderson, a former rugby player from South Africa. Anderson became a highly successful NFL kicker, playing for multiple teams over 2 decades. Gary Anderson, nicknamed the Flying Scotsman.
Sick nickname.
No, this can't be him. This is a darts player. He was a place kicker in the NFL for several teams, including the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was drafted by the Bills in '82, yada, yada, yada. I'm pretty sure there was one of more recent history, but I would have to probably do some more digging around.
Gotcha. Biggest stadium in the NFL is the Jets at 8250.
8250, yeah. And now look up Tottenham Stadium. It's quite
it was only 72,000.
Okay, so yeah, and then if you look up Wembley's stadium capacity, it should be just Googling on air here. That's makes for great podcast radio.
Totally.
90,000 at Wembley Stadium. So
you're getting a couple more bums and seats over there.
For sure. And they're growing the game, which is, that's what they say is the main thing over there. I think for me, it's like, maybe they do put teams in Europe at some point, but for me, it's just like them trying to reach out and sell more merch.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, hey, if we can hit this Europe market and get these people interested, we're going to sell X amount of millions more dollars in merch every year. And the one thing that does work is in England, I believe they're only 5 hours ahead of the East Coast games. Mm-hmm. So, like, if you get those morning games on in England, it's 3 p.m. The big trouble for them is if they're putting games on Sunday out there and it's during the soccer, the real football season, if you will, people aren't going to watch. Like,
I remember I was sleeping over at Shay's one time. Shout out Shay. Love you, babe.
Let's go, Shay.
And she gets home from night shift at 6:30 in the morning. So, I kind of wake up. She goes to bed. I start my day. I'm like, oh, there's a live football game at 6:45 in the morning. Let's fucking go.
Who was it?
It was Jacksonville and the Chargers, I want to say.
Yeah.
But
Was this last year? I think that was the game this last year.
no, it was a couple of years
A couple
ago.
years ago, okay.
But another thing I was gonna say is a lot of the foreign markets have really claimed teams of their own.
Interesting.
Like London considers Jacksonville their home team because
Okay.
they've played. I think they've played there the most out of all of the teams.
Okay.
And in another example, Matt Williamson, I was listening to his podcast the other day, and he's a big Steelers reporter, but he does a national podcast. But anyways, he was saying that down in Mexico for their Mexican games, the Mexicans kind of claim the Steelers as their home team.
Interesting.
And
The
he said
Steelers.
Yeah, and he said part of the biggest reasons was in the 70s when the NFL blew up in America, it obviously trickled its way down into Mexico.
Right.
And in the 70s, the Steelers were good, so Mexico just cheered for the Steelers.
I gotcha.
But he was saying down in Mexico, they have like their own Pittsburgh Mexican radio station set up.
No shit.
Yeah, and it's literally considered a Steelers country.
That's cool.
So yeah, it is.
That's a fun fact.
Yes, and I have nothing to prove this, but I feel like that's part of why the Jags play at London every single year.
Makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it makes sense for the NFL as well to send a consistent team to those places because you're going to get people that buy into like those teams, for example. And if you were to just change the teams up every year, like the NHL does this, they change the teams up almost every year they go to Europe, at least somewhat. You're not building a fan base around a team, and that's really how you get people into a sport. You don't get people into a sport by showing them the sport. Like you can throw rugby on right now for me, for example. I like rugby. I'll probably watch it for a few minutes and turn it off.
Yeah.
But if I knew what the teams were or I was invested in a team and my quote-unquote team was on, of course I'm going to tune into that game. I'm going to watch it longer, right? So I think that's a smart move by the NFL.
You just got to find a good team that you need to start gambling on, and then you'll
That's
start
right.
watching.
Yeah, that's a super healthy way to start a fandom of a team.
Oh, totally. Did you know in the late 2000s they tried a NFL Europa?
I do remember something like that back in the day. It was more of like a minor league situation, I think, right?
Well, they tried to they tried to create a league over there, and I'm sure it was a minor league setup because obviously why would the big talent go over there?
Right.
But it was just like Germany, Spain, UK.
I do remember that.
Yeah, I think it lasted 2 years, and then
Okay.
never to be seen again.
An XFL situation.
Yeah, totally XFL situation. That's a fun talk we have for the off season once the playoffs wrap up. But
Yeah,
I wanna talk about development in other leagues compared
Right.
to the NFL. 'Cause
Yeah,
the NFL has the worst one.
Terrible.
But that's a huge conversation. For
It
some
is.
off-season
We can
talk.
leave it for another time, but I do want to know your thoughts on the XFL, or I guess now it's the USFL. Is it?
Yeah, I think it's a fun thing.
Yeah. Do you like some of the rule changes?
I'm not familiar with any of the rule changes.
Okay.
Do you know them?
I don't know them all off the top of my head, but I know like the punt or the kickoff situation that the NFL adopted now was used in the XFL a few years ago. And when
Yeah.
I first saw it, I actually really liked it. I still do really like it because it promotes more returns.
Totally.
Nowadays it kind of sucks with the touchback always, right? And so I think that helped a lot this year having.
It's
having
just
that
one
rule.
of those things. The kickoff was the same for so long. I feel like
Yeah,
no matter
it's
what,
weird
it's
to get
gonna
used
shit
to.
on.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of in the NHL the rule change of when they changed the crease. And I can't remember the year, but it was probably the late 90s.
Was that when the Stars won in the cup
The
final?
Stars versus the Sabres. That's right. And the skate was in the crease, right?
Yeah.
And it used to be this big oval, like a C shape, or not oval, semicircle, a C shape that was quite wide.
Mhm.
And they changed it now. Obviously, it's been a long time since they made that change. They changed it to that weird kind of like squared off shape almost, right?
Really?
Yeah, but one thing
was it way bigger?
it was definitely wider. I think the new crease, if you will, is like deeper. but it's definitely not as wide. Like
Gotcha.
it would go several. It was like a couple of feet outside the post on each side. It felt like.
Yeah, and wasn't it a missed call in a Game 7 of the Cup?
Yeah, so like, and you're really racking my brain here because I was a kid when this happened, but I do still remember this. I don't remember if it was an overtime or what the situation was. I feel like
was
it might have
triple
been.
overtime.
It was okay. So it was Stars Sabres. Pretty sure Dominic Hasek's in the net for the Sabres, and you had I believe it was Brett Hull. You could probably look this up. Brett Hull skate in the crease, and his skate was in the crease when he scored a goal. What year was it? 1998?
99, I
99,
think, if
okay.
this is the right one. Yeah, triple overtime goal in Game 6.
Game 6, okay.
Brett Hall.
It was Brett Hull. So Brett Hull had his skate in like the top of the crease, but it was not in a situation where it was interfering with the goaltender. And he scores this goal from in tight. And the big controversy at the time was if you were in the crease, it was no goal.
Real, like in the crease at all.
No goal.
Whereas nowadays you have to be fucking with the goaltender.
Exactly. Now you have to have contact with the goaltender. There's, and if you were to ask anyone, like even like someone like Elliot Friedman or, any of these guys are on Hockey Night in Canada, you said, hey, define me goaltender interference. They wouldn't be able to because it's such a, it feels like it's a very fluid conversation. It's like, oh, that's
and every
goaltender
ref's going to call it differently.
Exactly. And then they're supposed to review it, right? So it's supposed to be going to like, the referees in Toronto that are sitting in the war room or whatever. But it seems to change like game to game, like what it actually is. Back then, like I said, it was in 1999. It was just if you had a skate in the crease or you were in the crease, it was no goal.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that all played out because I would have been 10 or 11 at the time. I do remember it, but obviously I had other things going on. I wasn't like looking up information on the 1999 Stanley Cup Final.
No, totally. Well, shout out to Google. We can bring it up right now.
Yeah, Google baby.
Totally.
Yeah, crazy. I would, it'd be good to like learn more about that situation. It was such a wild event, and it's funny that we're talking about the Sabres in a Stanley Cup Final because I do have a funny stat in regards to the Leafs losing last night, but I'll save it for later. Do we want to wrap up this NFL talk? XFL we can talk about another time, or USFL.
Totally.
I'm definitely down to do that. Do a big episode on that.
Last question. Game of the year.
Game of the year. So I just had a brief look through the games. I'll be honest, I haven't like dived right into the schedule, obviously, as you know. But I'm seeing the Eagles at the Bills Week 17. That seems like a juicy game. Josh Allen, maybe a little redemption there.
It'll definitely answer some playoff questions, I think.
Yeah, hopefully both those teams are like still fighting for something in Week 17. That would be the only thing that brings that game down a notch. But the nice thing about having 18 weeks now is that 17th game or that 17th week is still somewhat of an important week.
Totally.
You see those rests in Week 18. It would be kind of dumb for the NFL to put that game on Week 18 anyways. Like, obviously, they probably talked about that, right?
Yeah.
What about you? What do you got?
I've got Ravens-Chiefs.
Chiefs.
I think it's week number 4.
Oh, that's early. That's early.
Yeah.
And where is it at? Is it in Baltimore? Looks like it's in Kansas, maybe. I'm trying to see.
It's in Kansas, but I think it's just going to be an absolute shootout.
Yeah.
I just think it's going to be the highest scoring game of the year, and that's honestly the only reason I picked it.
Bet the over, folks. Week
Bet
4.
the
Lock it
over.
in now. You can probably get your best odds right now.
What's the over, like 52 or something?
Yeah, it probably is.
Yeah, it's definitely up there. It's definitely up there. But yeah, no, I'm gonna go with that for my pick of the week. I think that's gonna be a total shootout.
Awesome. All right, well that'll do it for the NFL talk. Let's transition here to hockey. Even though we kind of just had a little discussion there on the '99 Stanley Cup Final. What were your thoughts on? Why don't we kick it off with? Let's kick it off with Winnipeg, Dallas, and then we'll talk about Florida, Toronto. Obviously, we have the other series to talk about as well. We talked last week. Both Vegas, Edmonton, and Washington, Carolina were at 3-1 at the time. Both of those series end in 5 anyways. So let's have a quick chat about Winnipeg.
Winnipeg, Hellebuck.
Yeah, Hellebuck was brutal in the first half of that series. He was really good in the last 3 games for them.
Yeah.
He turned it around. It's too bad he kind of found it a little too late.
Totally.
I'm disappointed.
Can you just sum up the Jets' playoff run to Hellebuck? Like the only reason the Blues went to 7
Yeah, and I was, it's funny, I was thinking about that actually on the drive over here was Winnipeg. They're kind of in a funny situation, almost Toronto-esque. We keep going back to Toronto here, but Toronto, are they going to blow it up this year? And I was thinking about the same thing with Winnipeg. I mean, it's hard for them to blow it up because I think they just re-signed Morrissey, Scheifele, and Hellebuck the year before this last season, or it was last off season, and they signed all three of them, I think, to the same contract. It was 8 years, $64 million. So
Really?
all three of them are locked up long term.
Yeah.
Nick Ehlers is going to walk. He's an unrestricted free agent. He's been really good for them. So he's almost certainly walking out the door, almost kind of like Marner is with Toronto. So what does Winnipeg do from here? I mean,
do they have Connor for a while?
I think he's got 1 year left on his deal. You can look him up, Kyle Connor Puckpedia, and it will show his current contract. But yeah, what do? They just re-signed Pionk as well. So I mean, you got the base for a really good team there. But is it a situation of where they've kind of just like hit the top of the hill? What do you got left on Kyle Connor's contract? 1 more year?
1 more year,
Yeah.
$7 million.
Yeah.
So he's based. So you're saying he's the only piece that they can part with, and with how expensive their team is, and
They have to keep him.
You
He's
think
so
so?
important to their team. They have to keep him. He's their best goal scorer. He's one of the best goal scorers in the league.
yeah,
And like Scheifele is good. Morrissey is great on the back end, but like you need a sniper. They got to re-sign him. So he is eligible for an extension July 1st. So they can start working on an extension. It wouldn't surprise me if before we start next season, they've got him signed to an 8-year deal. And I think the thinking behind keeping Scheifele, Hellebuck, and Morrissey on those 8-year by $8 million a season, it's kind of a relatively cheap cap hit. Maybe a little bit more expensive on Hellebuck's side, but the fact is he's the best goaltender in the world. He had a terrible playoffs this season, but he's going to win the Vezina this year. So they're going to have room there to offer Connor what he wants. He's going to want, I would say, 12.5, I think, probably.
yeah.
Especially with the cap going up. So we'll see what Winnipeg does.
Who is it who just signed for 13? Like the new highest?
Oh, I think it was Ranton in
Rantanen.
Dallas. He signed that 8-year deal after he got dealt there from Carolina. So
Yeah.
yeah, did he get 13? Is that what it was?
I think it was 13, and a couple months ago I was listening to Chicklets when they signed him,
Yeah.
and they had some capologist buddy of theirs on, and they were just talking about how, like, in the last couple of years, the NFL's really picked up traction and its popularity and its market and everything.
The NHL.
Or sorry, the NHL.
Yeah. No, you're good.
Yeah, but it's just really picked up traction, and you can notice it in the salary cap going up. It's having these huge jumps. So they were just saying that, like, right now, signing these guys if you can sign them, like, these absolute stars to closer to $10 million.
You're laughing.
Oh, yeah, you'll be good a couple years down the road.
Yeah, because I think this season it's going up $5 million or maybe a bit more, and then they're projecting the same for the next following 2 years. So the big thing for them is the last 3 seasons, it's been pretty much no growth on the salary cap side of things, and it's not because the game hasn't been growing, although I think you're right about that. It definitely has been growing in the States the last couple years for sure.
Yeah.
It's way more popular, especially with NBC and TNT now. Both broadcasts are phenomenal. Amazon's picked up some games as well, which has been good.
Yeah.
But the main thing with the cap going up this season is I believe the players have finally paid off the salary that they owed the owners from COVID.
Okay.
So obviously during COVID, no fans. The owners were taking a big hit by playing the games and honoring the contracts because they weren't getting any of the revenue from inside the stadium, right?
Yeah.
It was just TV
The
money.
$20 beers.
Yeah, exactly. All that shit. So that has now finally been paid off. I think it was paid off like early this season.
Yeah.
They basically just like, it was their escrow. They were just basically taxing the players a little bit more every paycheck kind of thing.
So during COVID, were they getting paid, but they had some deal where, like, you could have 1% of my paycheck for the next 4 years or something?
No, it was, I don't know if there was an interest put on it. I think it was just strictly a situation of the owners made a deal with the players, like, we'll pay you guys full salary, we'll put a season on. There won't be fans, but what we'll do is we'll pay you out as if you're making normal salary, and then for the next 3 years, we're going to take a bigger cut, either of their paychecks or I think it was the player salaries. It came out of their salaries. But I think maybe also maybe merchandise, those kind of things, like, money that the
Gotcha.
players make on.
Yeah.
It was part of it was going back to the owners to pay them out to get them back to square. And then now that they're square, I mean, we're going to see the cap go up like crazy because there's more money to be spent in the league.
Yeah.
Right? The players aren't basically in debt to the owners anymore, as I think
Gotcha.
the main thing was. So, but anyways, back to Dallas, Winnipeg. Yeah, it was a good series. It's too bad Hellebuck found his game a little late.
Mm.
I would have loved to seen that series go to 7, dude. I was pretty happy that the Jets pulled it back to 3-2, and I was really bummed that Dallas won that one in overtime, and it was like just like that. And I don't know if you saw the whole situation with Scheifele. Unfortunately, his dad passed away unexpectedly the day before Game 6.
Yeah.
And then at the end, he scored a goal in that game, in Game 6. He scored I think it was the go-ahead goal for Winnipeg, and then at the end of the game, it's tied up. There's like 14 seconds left. Dallas kind of gets it looks like it's going to be a clear-cut breakaway, and Scheifele's like the man tracking back, and he dives down and tries to poke the puck, but he trips the player. I thought it should have been a penalty shot. It was considered a tripping call, so they got a 2-minute power play out of it. So Scheifele's sitting in the box to start overtime.
Yeah.
And there's 8 seconds left in the power play, the penalty to Scheifele, and Dallas scores to win the series.
Oh.
So it's like, what a range of emotions for that guy. And, like, you could really see it, like, in the handshake. There was a lot of, like, love for him, which was good to see.
Yeah.
And, like, that's got to be soul-crushing. Like, you scored the goal to keep your team in it. It's like, that one's for Dad. Let's go. And then you take a penalty, which you basically had to take. Like, it wasn't a bad penalty. It was like, either I give this guy a breakaway at the end of the game, or I take the penalty, we kill it off, and hopefully we have another chance, right?
Yeah.
So he trips the guy, gets the penalty, and then unfortunately for him and the Jets, Dallas scores with 8 seconds left in the power play.
Damn.
Yeah, so that was a crazy end to that series.
That bad couple of days for Scheifele.
Yeah. Let's talk about Edmonton, Vegas. Not much really more to really
surprise.
Yeah, not much more to talk about, I guess, because we kind of discussed it last week. But we did say last week, if there was one team that was down 3-1, because we had 3 series at 3-1, which was the team that was going to make a comeback, and we both picked Vegas.
Yeah.
And they went out the next night and lost, and they got shut out in back-to-back games. Stuart Skinner played phenomenal again, which is mind-boggling. I don't know what they're going to do about that. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
I feel like you just said, biggest surprise was Stewart, because didn't Pickard get hurt?
Yeah, Pickard got hurt he won the first 2 games, and then he got hurt, and he was out for Game 4. He would have been out for Game 3, because Vegas won Game 3, and that was on that play we talked about last week. Smith came down the left side, threw it into the middle. It got past Skinner, hit Draisaitl, and went in.
Yeah.
So yeah, Stuart Skinner would have played Game 3, 4, and 5, and he got back-to-back shutouts. That's mind-boggling to me. What do they do going into this next round? Because I looked it up earlier. Pickard is now healthy. Do they go back to Pickard?
Ride Skinner while he's hot.
I think you have to, and we can talk about this too more in the preview, and I'll mention it because I do want to do a conference final preview. Is Chris Knobloch's definitely not afraid to go to his other goaltender.
Yeah.
We saw it last year in the playoffs. And I think you're right. I think he's got back-to-back shutouts.
Totally.
Roll with him. If he gets blown out first game, all right, Pickard, you're back in.
The other thing another takeaway was the Oilers' depth scoring came out of nowhere.
Yeah, huge, dude. I'm going to talk about this in that preview as well when we talk Dallas Edmonton, but they had so much depth scoring. Obviously, I think points-wise, they were led by Draisaitl and McDavid in round 2, which is kind of expected.
Yeah.
But what was unexpected was getting goals from Kasperi Kapanen, getting a couple of goals from Evander Kane. I think Corey Perry had 3 goals in round 2. We're talking guys, I mean, not Evander Kane, but Corey Perry and Kasperi Kapanen, 3rd, 4th liners.
Yeah.
So that was crazy. Their depth scoring in that series was surprising.
Totally, and that's what fucked them over last year in the finals.
Big time.
Their bottom lines weren't doing shit.
Well, that almost happened to them against the Canucks. It went to 7 games, and the Canucks almost beat them, and their depth scoring was nowhere to be found.
No, totally, and even throughout this season, it was like Arvidsson was a pretty disappointing sign. And
yeah, Jeff Skinner was disappointing too.
You're hoping to get a good, solid 3rd line center, and they're just not doing anything. They're not generating everything.
Yeah, so it was interesting to see them kind of pull that rabbit out of the hat because, like you said, we haven't seen it all year, and like what a time to be getting that now.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk Washington, Carolina. Again, series was 3-1. Washington just got walked all over.
Washington looked old.
Yeah.
They look slow.
They were slow. And that was the biggest thing I noticed too, is Carolina. They just could not keep up with Carolina's speed. And Carolina, Rod Brendamore likes to run 4 lines. He runs 4 lines, and it's like keeps the guys fresh all the time.
Yeah.
And all 4 lines basically played the same way. They dump and chase, and they fucking beat you to the puck, and they hit you if they don't.
Yeah.
And you're right. Washington just looked tired.
Totally.
Which is crazy because they had one of the easier first-round matchups with Montreal.
Even Ovi.
Yeah.
Ovi looks slow, man.
Yeah, he's getting.
He was
getting
not
old,
on
dude.
the Russian gas.
No, he was not. He's missing that shit. Dude.
Yeah, totally.
You know that's a real thing.
Oh, totally.
I couldn't believe that. I heard a podcast recently. I'm gonna just digress here for a moment. I heard a podcast recently. I can't remember the name of it now. I'll try to come up with it later. But anyways, they were talking to a guy that had played over in Europe and played in the NHL for a bit, went to Europe, came back, whatever, retired. And he played in Russia for a couple of seasons. And he said in between periods, they would just bring guys back into the medical room one at a time, and they'd just strap a mask on them.
Yeah.
And they were like, they wouldn't tell you what you were getting. But the guy telling the story was like basically saying it was like basically gas version of meth. Like they're just like getting them dialed in. Like this shit is not legal.
No,
like, completely illegal. Like it's wild.
Also with injuries and stuff too, dude.
Yeah,
they'll just pump whatever
they don't give a
they
fuck
need into you to kill the pain, and off you go.
Putin's team's winning every year anyways.
Yeah,
they don't care.
Well, buddy, last game he played in, he scored 42 goals. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Their fucking roster stacked.
Have you seen him on the ice, dude?
Oh, he looks terrible.
Oh,
looks like he's gonna fall over.
Oh, bad, dude.
Seriously.
It's like as bad as the Justin Bieber situation when he did the warm up with the Leafs. You know what? Bieber can actually skate.
Can he?
He can skate like as good as you or me. You know what I mean? Like he's not an NHL player,
Gotcha.
but he's also not out there playing in like a preseason game trying to act like he's somebody.
Yeah.
Vladimir Putin's out there and like guys aren't checking him because they're just like, I'm probably gonna get thrown out of a 7-story window if I do anything.
If I touch the fucking guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, smart call by them too.
Yeah, not bad. So yeah, Carolina, Washington. You're right. Washington looks slow. There's not much to add there. I'll talk a bit more about them in a few moments, but again, they were just kind of like they just kind of walked all over Washington. 5 games, it was over quick.
Totally.
Florida, Toronto, the big one, went to 7 games. What are your thoughts? I want to talk about Game 7 in a moment. I mean, if you want to get some brief thoughts in on Game 7 as well, but I want to pick your brain about it.
The Leafs leafed it. Mm-hmm. It was like 4:00 in the afternoon. I'm in my living room.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sitting down.
I
got a beverage?
I'm having a beverage. I think a honey rum and Coke.
Very good.
So I realize the game's on. I turn the game on. There's 12 or 13 minutes left in the second period, 0-0. I'm like, okay, cool. And I specifically remember the shots were 8-7.
Yeah.
I go to deal with my 9-month-old baby, get that all settled down, come back 5 minutes later. It's 3-0 and shots are 19-7.
That second period, dude, let's just talk about it. Game 7. That second period was actually the worst period of hockey in the NHL I think I have ever watched by a team. Like, it was monumentally bad. Like, it was... I think it's going to go down as quite possibly the worst Game 7, at least in Leaf history, and they've had some bad ones.
Yeah.
But, like, that's got to be one of the top 5 worst Game 7s of all time by any team. It was just horrendous. The first period, the scoring chances in that game started off 21-0 for Florida. Okay? By the time the first period ended, and given the end of the first period, the last 10 minutes, I'd say Toronto probably played their best section of hockey in that game was in the last 10 minutes of the first. Last 10 minutes of the first, okay, maybe Toronto starts looking a little better. They actually get cheered off the ice at the end of the first.
Do they?
So the fans are like, okay, we're back in this. Like, let's go.
Yeah.
We just killed a massive power play. Like, we're back to full strength. Let's get on this. Second period starts, and it starts off exactly like the first period did. It was all Florida. And, there was like you said, there was probably I feel like at least a 10-minute, maybe longer, maybe a 15-minute period where Toronto didn't have a shot on net. Like,
Brutal.
it was bad.
Brutal.
And then Florida scores 3 goals in 7 minutes. And it's just like boom, boom, boom. Like, first goal, I think, was the Seth Jones one. Morgan Riley makes a terrible pinch down the right side, completely misses the puck. Seth Jones walks in, snipes it. Great shot, beautiful goal. The other 2 goals, again, they were just kind of like, it was pressure situations, like open pass in front. I think the Gadjevich one, it was just like a bang play. Like, Seth Jones has the puck at the blue line, makes a great pass down to like inside the hash marks. Whoever's there receives the pass, fires it across, boom, Gadjevich buries it, 3-0. And at that point, the game was over for me. I mean, I watched the rest of it. Max Domi scores like 2 minutes into the third. And then 46 seconds later, Joseph Wall lets in a muffin. And it's like, it was a deflection, but like, he should have had that. Like, there was no question.
Well, that was a question I was going to ask you. Can you chalk that up to Wall, or did the Leafs really let him down in front of him?
Both. It was both. I think when it was 3-0, I would say like, first goal he doesn't have a chance on. The next 2 goals are just defensive breakdowns.
Yeah.
They kind of just hang him out to dry again. And then in the third period, they score that goal to make it 3-1, and that's at the point where you need your goaltender to be dialed in now. Okay, you've let 3 in. Like, you can't let another one in this game. You let another one in, or season's over.
Yeah.
And then not even a minute later, there's like a shot from the puck comes to the point. I can't remember who it is. A Florida defenseman grabs it, just kind of wrists it on net. It's not even that hard of a shot. It's just like, waist height, good wrist shot. And it gets deflected, and it goes short side under the blocker off the post and in. And it's like, you cannot let that goal in.
Brutal.
And, like, we're not talking about a deflection that was, like, right in front of him either. Like, this guy was probably still 7-8 feet outside of him. So it's like, if you're just in the right position, that puck's just hitting you.
And it came so quickly after that goal.
Yeah, it's just a momentum killer.
Like, I think, was it Riley who scored or something?
No, it was Max Domi. Domi scored.
Domi scored. And like you said, it's like, all right, we got to fucking dial in. Like,
the building is erupting. They're
totally
pumped. Like, let's go.
There's still a lot of hockey left.
Yeah.
Like, this game is not over, and less than a minute later, that happens.
It's terrible. It's an absolute killer, and at that point, you could just see the wind came out of the sails. Like, it was, okay, we got one back, and now we're back down three goals again. Like, it's not good. So, for Toronto, I picked Florida to win this series, so I'm glad about that.
Yeah.
And I think we even talked about it. Game 5 was such a big game. We said, I think whoever wins Game 5 wins the series. Florida won Game 5. They beat Toronto in Toronto 6-1.
Yeah.
And then Game 6, they go back to Florida. They get shut out. Toronto does a great job shutting them down. They basically played the perfect game, their best game of the year.
Yeah.
And then Game 7 rolls around, and they throw another fucking egg out there, and it's another 6-1 game.
Brutal.
And just to throw the salt in the wound, the guy who gets the empty netter, Brad Marchand.
Oh, totally.
Who has beat the Leafs 5 times in Game 7s throughout his career now.
Yeah.
The most, I think it was the most any player has ever won a Game 7 against another team. And it's now 5. He was tied for the record with 4, but now he's got 5 wins against them.
That's crazy. Him and Seth Jones proven to be huge pickups this season.
Yeah, Marchand led the team in scoring in round 2 for Florida.
That's crazy.
Which is massive, because when they picked him up, they thought he was going to be a great, a wicked third liner. Like,
Totally.
Obviously he's better than a third liner, but they picked him up for depth. Like, they picked him up. Let's stick this guy on our third line, and we got the best third line in the league.
Yeah.
You know, and he had 8 points, and I think Lusterainen or Lundell, one of the two, had 8 points as well, which was his line mate. So they crushed it, obviously. What do you think Toronto does in the offseason? Do you think they can bring these players back? This is now the 6th year in a row of this crap. Like, I'm not a Leafs fan, but if I'm them, I'm cleaning fucking house.
Oh, totally. Nylander.
Yeah.
He's definitely gone.
Mm-hmm.
He's definitely gone, and you see everyone's thinking it too. Like, it's posted everywhere.
He's the guy you trade, I think.
The biggest question is Matthews. Because he's gonna get shit talked, and I saw in the Florida Toronto series, 23 players scored, and Matthews was not one of them.
Dude, I have got a crazy stat for you. Matthews in his last 18 games in the NHL playoffs, and we're talking about a guy that scores 50 goals a year.
Yeah.
In his last 18 games, he's scored 4 goals.
Wow.
Like, nowhere to be found. You take that into a regular season, and he's a 20-goal scorer. That's like, where is he? Marner's going to walk too. Like that. You're right. Matthews is a big question mark for me. I think you're right. I think if they're going to trade someone, look, Marner walks out the door. He's a free agent. He's not going to re-sign. If I'm him, I'm going to someone else. Carolina's got $30 million in cap space. Go play for Carolina. You'll probably win a cup.
Yeah.
If I'm Marner, I'm out of there. Matthews is the guy that there's a big question mark. What do you do with him? And then Nylander is the guy that you can trade. Nylander's the guy, okay, we can trade Willie Nylander and we can get something big in return. What do they need? I don't have a fucking clue. Do they need a goalie? I don't know. Joseph Wall looks pretty good.
Yeah.
Their D-core this year was really good. Do they just need a different mix of forwards? Is that all we're talking here? Like, so they can make a trade with Nylander and get someone in return that's going to be really good. But I just don't know if they can win with Matthews.
Who's their coach been?
This season's Craig Berube. So Craig Berube came in. He won a cup with St. Louis, I think it was, in 2019.
Yeah.
But he he coaches kind of like I don't want to say a defensive style, but he's more of like a rough and tumble guy. Like he wants his players to like not shy away from the physical game. He wants like rough and tough defensemen. That's why you've seen them pick up like those big guys you were talking about last week. They've made like some big changes on the back end.
Yeah.
Chris Tanev is a huge one. He blocked so many shots. So he's like, I think he's actually kind of the guy for them. I don't think that he's going anywhere. This was his first season. He got him the furthest they've ever been with that core, which is winning 7 games.
Yeah.
Jay Woodcroft was the coach before, I think it was. Or no, it was Sheldon Keefe, excuse me. Jay Woodcroft was the Oilers. So it was Sheldon Keefe before, who is behind the bench of New Jersey now. And he was kind of more of like a player's coach. So I think they needed that change. They needed someone more like an old school type coach to come in, right?
Yeah, like how the last season the Oilers made that fire in mid-season and it just turned them around.
Yeah, Jay Woodcroft getting canned and then them bringing Chris Knobloch, who had no NHL experience, but he was Connor McDavid's coach in major junior.
Gotcha.
That's why they brought him in.
Gotcha.
And he's obviously done great things for them. They went to the Cup final last year. They're in the Western Conference final this year. So
totally.
But yeah, I don't know about Matthews. Nylander they trade. Tavares is going to walk as well. He's a free agent, or maybe he re-signs at a cheap deal. But Toronto is like a big question mark for me going into this offseason.
I feel like the way to look at it is you can lose Nylander and Marner, and assuming you swap them out for par or over par pieces, it's considered a retooling. But Matthews obviously the big piece. If they move him, I think that's when you officially call it a rebuild.
He's the big question mark, like we talked about. Like, what do you do? Like, you could trade him. I mean, but you're also on the risk of like never getting a player like that again.
Totally.
Like he's a generational player. He's just not been great in the playoffs.
Totally.
Which has been the story for all of those guys, including Morgan Riley on the back end.
My one big regret I got in our fantasy hockey league we're in. Yeah. I gave up Knees last year.
Oh, nice. Matthew Knies. I actually just traded him. I had him in my keeper league, my other keeper league.
Yeah.
I've had him for 2 or 3 seasons, just kind of letting him marinate. This season, I kind of wanted to go in and like make a big move and like try to like get to like the finals.
Yeah.
Made it to the conference finals, if you will, the semifinals, which was good for me. But I traded Knies at the deadline for Anze Kopitar and some other pieces.
Okay.
And it worked out in the sense that I made it further this season. But then after watching Knies, I'm like, man, I kind of wish I didn't give him up. Like he's going to be a stud for them, I think.
That's brutal.
Yeah.
And you had a pretty disappointing end to your season in our league.
Yeah, I lost in the finals this year. I was dead last season, had a great rebuild, and then lost in the finals to James, who's now won it in back-to-back years.
Brutal.
We're going to have to take that title away from him, bud. Like,
we are.
We got to do something about that.
You're kicked from the league.
Yeah, see you later.
Totally.
Let's move into the Western Conference and Eastern Conference finals preview. I got a little thing for each one here, just kind of breaking down each team and then kind of like what's maybe my prediction, and I'll get your thoughts in between each team's kind of preview here. All right.
Okay.
So we got Dallas versus Winnipeg in the West, or Dallas versus Winnipeg, Dallas versus the Oilers in the West. Obviously for Dallas, the big thing in round 2 is Mikko Rantanen. He had 7 points in 6 games in the against the Jets, including 4 goals, which is huge. The big question mark for me with him is he's averaging almost a 27% shooting percentage, and his career average is around 16. And they have no depth scoring right now. He accounted for almost a third of their goals against the Jets. So what do they do moving forward? Jason Robertson's back, but they don't have much depth scoring back there. I'm not 100% sure how Dallas is gonna fare here in this one against Edmonton, especially because Edmonton's depth scoring has been huge.
Totally.
Both I think LA and Vegas did a good job of kind of like controlling Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid for the most part. More so Vegas than LA, but that wasn't even the story with them in the last round. I mean, Evan Bouchard had 5 points as well, and he was a +7, which was a big surprise because everyone's always talking about how terrible he is defensively. But he obviously proving that he's on the right side of the puck more often than not. Their big thing was their depth scoring. So Corey Perry, 3 goals in 5 games. Adam Henrique had 2, I believe. Evander Kane had a couple. Zach Hyman scored. Connor Brown, Darnell Nurse, Kasperi Kapanen, Podkolzin scored a goal. So their depth scoring is like out of control right now, which is a great problem to have for Edmonton. So I'm not sure like what your thoughts here, just based on, you know, okay, Edmonton's got the better depth, they got the better top end talent, but the goaltending is always the question mark, I feel like, with Edmonton.
Do you think Heiskanen's going to play a big enough role to shut down those top lines?
It's
going
going to
to
be
getting him back halfway through the last series.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like I think he only played 15 minutes in each of those games.
He's still not 100%.
Yeah, I don't know if he's not 100%. He's probably 100% health wise, but he's not got the conditioning yet. So maybe this they've had almost a week off. Well, not a week quite, but like 4 or 5 days or something like that. I think they played on. What did they play on Saturday? Did they play Saturday or whatever it was? And I think this first game for the Western Conference is Wednesday.
Gotcha.
So, you know, they've had some time off, so maybe that'll help Heiskanen as well. I think it's going to come down to, honestly, the goaltending. I think the goaltending and the depth scoring for Dallas, they need more than just Mikko Rantanen scoring goals. Jason Robertson had 1 assist in the second round. Not good enough. I mean, I know he's coming off injury, but still.
That's brutal.
You know, you got Rupe Hintz, Matt Duchene, Jamie Benn, even for he should be like chipping in on the depth scoring. But it's going to be goaltending. Jake Ottinger's been really good. He's probably arguably out of the last 4 goalies, or 5 if you want to consider Edmonton having 2 goalies, I'd say he's probably been the best goalie. He's got a .929 save percentage, or he did in the last round, and only a 2.02 goals against average. So over 6 games, those are really good numbers. And then you have the other situation with Stuart Skinner and Pickard. Do they go to Pickard? I mean, I was trying to do some research beforehand. Doesn't seem to be a consensus on it. Some people are saying stick with Stuart Skinner. Other people are saying you got to go back to Pickard. Skinner was, 2-1 in the 3 games he played. He had a 1.28 goals against average and a .944 save percentage with 2 shutouts. But Pickard also, won the first 2 games of that series as well. So it's going to be interesting. I'm going to pick Dallas in 7.
Yeah.
Just because I don't think the depth scoring for Edmonton is going to be as effective in this one. And Dallas plays a faster game than Vegas does. And I think that's how you play against the Edmonton Oilers, is you got to have a fast game that has good breakouts and you score off the rush.
Do you basically have to outpace Edmonton the whole game?
You got to match them. I feel like if you match them, their depth can't keep up. I mean, obviously Connor McDavid's out there; he's the best skater in the world.
Yeah.
And Leon Draisaitl's, maybe not the best skater, but he's he's just always in the right place at the right time.
Mm.
But if you can outskate them or at least keep up with them, I think that's where they start to have problems in their own end, and they can't get their defensive like structure is so based on like having time to set up,
Yeah.
and off the rush they're not very good, especially with Stuart Skinner in there. That's how teams have kind of exploited them in the past. So I mean, we'll see. Like I'm not a big believer of Darnell Nurse and paying that man $9 million. I mean, all respect to him. He's making the bag. He's getting the bag right now, and he's a good player. He's a great defenseman, but I don't think he's worth as much as they're paying him. And still no Ekholm.
It's just hard to take Edmonton in any series because of Skinner. You know,
if they had a goalie, man, I would pick them. I think if they had like someone like Thatcher Demko from the Canucks, or like any of these other goalies that are still in the playoffs, Anderson or Bobrovsky. If you had Bobrovsky in Edmonton, I feel like they'd be like a Stanley Cup favorite all the time. Like it's just their goaltending is just not good.
Do you think they make a move this offseason?
I thought they were going to make a move last season, to be honest. But maybe they do this year. I guess it'll really depend on how the playoffs play out. If they go ahead and win the cup and Stuart Skinner plays out of his mind for the next little while, maybe they just keep him and like just kind of roll with it. But yeah, I'm surprised they didn't pick up a goalie for sure.
Totally. Next year it says they're projected to have $63 million in cap space.
$63 million next year?
Yeah. It says that on Puckpedia.
No, it's probably because they've got some contracts coming off the books. Right below, yeah, you're not talking about this year coming up, right? You're talking about 26, 27?
Yeah. For if they wanted to make a big move in goalie next
26, 27, Connor McDavid's a free agent.
Oh, that's the big one.
So that's the big one. I feel like maybe Bouchard is as well, to be honest. You'd have to look it up and see where he is. You can see there, okay, so Connor McDavid, UFA, the following season. See the red mark?
Yeah.
Scroll down. Look at all the UFAs listed. We're just looking on Puckpedia here, people.
They can do a full retool.
Yeah, they
like,
got 5 or 6 guys
terms.
coming off the book. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Is Bouchard available too? Is he re-upping at that time?
Bouchard.
Evan Bouchard. He should be in that bottom section there. Go down a little. Yeah, right in there somewhere. Maybe the top guy?
Nurse.
What's the next one?
Oh, third. Yeah, he only has this year.
Oh, okay. So he's actually going to be – they're going to need to do a deal this offseason with him.
Totally.
So he'll get paid big bucks. He'll get paid – I bet you he gets paid $10 million.
The Oilers are definitely tooled to have the flexibility to totally reshape their team in the upcoming years.
Yeah, the big issue with them is the Darnell Nurse contract. If you go down and look at him under defense, he's like, what, 9.7 or something?
Yeah, 9.2.
9.2, and he's locked up for the next, like, 6 seasons, I think, or 5 seasons.
Until 2030.
Yeah, so that's not a great contract for them to have.
No, that's brutal.
You'll notice, yeah, they have $67 million in cap space, but look at how many free agents they'll have. They're going to have to sign a whole new team. Right, so
a huge pickup that I liked this offseason was Wallman from the Sharks.
Yeah, he's been really good for them. And that's what they've needed. They needed defensive defensive defensemen like that. They tried to do it with CC in the past, didn't work.
No, and you bring him in, you know exactly what you're getting. The guy might only get friggin' 20 points a season.
Yeah, you don't care about that with him.
But he's going plus 200 throughout the season.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Who do you got in this Dallas Edmonton series? I've got Dallas in 7 games, and I'm kind of sticking with them because we kind of talked about them previously. They're my Stanley Cup final pick with Florida, so it's going to be no surprise on the other side who I got.
I don't think the Oilers are going to be able to keep up.
No, I don't think so either.
Like you said, they had that nice depth scoring in the Golden Knights series, but throughout the season it proved unreliable. And end of the day, you might get hot at the next time, but each series is a whole different game.
Yeah, and I mean, I've got the Stars in 7, so I mean it could go either way. According to my prediction, you got Dallas in 6. I was kind of leaning towards Dallas in 6 as well, but the Connor McDavid factor always kind of like throws a wrench into the wheel, so to speak. On the other side, and we'll wrap up with this one, and then maybe we'll just do a little Bet365 bet here before we call it a night. But let's talk about Florida, Carolina, Eastern Conference Finals. So round 2, Brad Marchand, standout performer. Obviously, he led the playoffs with led the team in scoring with 8 points in 7 games. He was also a +6, so he was also like very effective. Like he was on the ice for goals, not goals against. Which I know a lot of people don't like the plus-minus stat, but I think it's still a good stat to look at. Yeah, so anyways, they showed a bunch of resilience against Toronto too, going down 2-0. They end up winning that one in 7.
Yeah.
Which was crazy. That's probably another thing the Leafs fans are choked about is they were up 2-0 in that one.
Totally.
And just like crazy depth this offseason. They had 9 players that recorded multi-goal efforts throughout round 2. So, you had Marchand, I think he had something like 5 goals in 7 games or something. And Matthew Tkachuk only had 4 assists. That's it. So he failed to score a goal. So if he can get going against Carolina,
totally.
I mean, they're rolling. Like they basically beat the Leafs there without Tkachuk.
Another big pickup this season that really paid off that we touched on earlier, Seth Jones.
Yeah,
he's
good, man. Like I think people ragged on him because he was on terrible teams.
Oh yeah,
he was on
he
Chicago,
spent half of his
Columbus,
career with Chicago.
Chicago and Columbus were his last 2 teams, and like Columbus when he was there was not good.
Yeah,
like they're getting a better now. They're like pushing to become a playoff team, but there's been a lot of change there. And then like with Chicago, it was just like it wasn't great. And like the biggest thing with him too was the contract that follows him around.
Yeah.
But I believe the Florida ended up getting Chicago to retain 50% on that Seth Jones deal, so they're only paying him half price, which is even bigger.
And I think they only gave up like a third or a fourth for him. So considering what you're getting,
Florida was trying to dump that contract, or Chicago was trying to dump that contract, get that out of there.
Yeah. When's the NHL draft lottery?
The lottery is done, actually. We can talk
Is it?
about that in a minute. Yeah, let's talk about that in a minute, and then we'll call it. So let's finish the playoffs, then we can talk about the lottery.
Gotcha.
The draft will be, usually it's like around June 25th, but they did the draft lottery last week.
Who got number 1?
The Islanders.
Ooh.
Which is crazy because they moved up, I think it was like 10 spots or something crazy.
Oh, so they had like a 3% chance.
It was outrageous. Yeah, it was crazy.
Damn.
So Carolina, they've been having a good playoffs, but my biggest thing with Carolina so far, they've got great efforts from Taylor Hall, Shane Gostisbehere, Jack Roslovic's been good, Sean Walker, and you got Rod Brendamore behind the bench. But my biggest issue with them is the quality of teams that they have played.
Mm-hmm.
They have played the New Jersey Devils, who are without Luke Hughes for part of it and Jack Hughes for the whole thing.
Yeah.
And they played a Washington team that, like you said, looked old, looked tired, weren't able to keep up with Rod Brendamore type hockey.
Yeah.
So that's my biggest question mark for Carolina. This will be like a real test for them. Yeah. So I've got Florida in 6 here. I mean, it was like I said, it was going to be a surprise me picking Florida because I picked them last week.
How much do you value the rest factor, considering they got through their series and gentlemen sweeps? Whereas Florida
sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad.
Gets you out of your mojo.
Yeah, like you got Florida coming off this 7-game series with Toronto, which was emotional and like obviously required such a massive effort by them to win 4 of the last 6 games.
Yeah.
Or 4 of the last 7 games, excuse me, or 5. But like it's, I don't know, man. Like I think it's a big thing if you got major injuries. If Florida's not banged up, I think it's an advantage for them because they're like dialed in. They're like, okay, we got 2 days off and we're back at it. Like it's let's go. Like this is just regular season mode.
Yeah.
With Carolina having the 4 or 5 days off, maybe it helps them if they've got some players banged up. But like I said, yeah, I think it kind of kicks teams out of their mojo if they got that going.
When's the last time they played?
I think it was Wednesday. I can look that up real quick. I'll tell you here in a moment. But I'm pretty sure it was Wednesday.
Yeah, and then they play tomorrow?
Yeah, they play tomorrow. That's going to be game 1. So Carolina's last game was Thursday. They played on Thursday. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday off, back on Tuesday. So if they have 4 full days off.
Damn.
So it's a lot. I mean, Rod Brendamore has probably definitely got them working, and that's not like kind of a normal question mark I would have for a Rod Brendamore team.
Yeah.
But still, I think the Panthers are the better team here. I like them to make their third Stanley Cup final appearance in a row.
I will say, I agree with you with the competition they've got through, but I think one takeaway from the Washington series was they were able to keep up with the toughness of Washington.
Yeah, like that's not going to come into play this series. I think with Florida. I mean, I don't think Florida's just going to be able to go out there and bully them around.
No, I think that's if they've proved anything through this playoff run, it's they can easily survive the physicality. And Carolina from afar, it's not exactly a team you'd take for a physical team.
Yeah.
You know, they got Burns, that big forwards they got, but
yeah, Brent Burns is huge for them on defense. Offensively, they're gritty. Like they're not gonna like. Carolina's not the team that's got like that superstar, and I think they were looking at that with Rantanen. I think that's why they kind of went out and got him.
Yeah,
but I don't think he fit the Rod Brandamore mold of the dump and chase kind of play. Like Rantanen's like very much a player that likes to possess the puck on the entry and like maybe he gets a chance at a shot or whatever.
And good things will happen with him when he does that.
Yeah, exactly. And he wasn't able to play Rod Brandamore hockey, so I think it was smart for them to move off of him. But I mean, we'll see what happens. I got Florida in 6. What do you got? So I got a Florida-Dallas final. I kind of would love to see a Florida Oilers final, but I just don't want the Oilers to win a Stanley Cup.
That would be a crazy rematch.
I just don't want to see them win a Stanley Cup, man.
You know, I'm gonna go with Carolina in 7. That's Carolina. Probably the upset.
I think that would be the upset. Yeah. Yeah, you could probably.
Yeah, it's basically a pick 'em. Hurricanes are favored this first game, but isn't it at the Panthers?
Yeah, that is bizarre.
Panthers at the Hurricanes.
No, it's the Canes have got home ice, so that's why they're favorites.
Definitely only reason, but yeah, even bet 365 as a pick 'em. Has them as a pick 'em basically.
Well, let's do that. Let's wrap up with that. Let's go locks of the week. Let's pick a lock of the week. You get one. Why don't you pick this game here, Florida?
I'm gonna go Canes.
You're gonna go Canes.
Yeah.
And then the Dallas-Edmonton series, who's got home ice in that? It's probably Dallas, I would think. Dallas. Yeah, Dallas has the home ice in that one. Dallas. I'm going to take Dallas in game 1. That's going to be my lock of the week. What's the over-under on those games?
This is also a pick-em game, basically.
Yeah.
Dallas and Oilers have a over-under of 6.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what about the other one? Probably like 5.5.
We're looking at 5.5.
5.5 for the Florida Carolina one. I would take the under in that game.
You think so?
I would take the under in that game. And then what's the other one? The other one was 6 for Edmonton Dallas.
Yeah.
I would take the over in that one.
You're gonna take the over on that one?
Yeah. Are you putting a parlay together?
Yeah.
All 4 picks?
I've parlayed this together. $10 pays out $109.
$10 for 109. There you go, folks. There's your locks of the week.
Yeah, totally. We'll check back next week and see how badly of a donation we gave to Bet365.
Oh, I mean, I'm sure they'll love it.
Yeah, totally. Any final thoughts to wrap up?
No, looking forward to round 2 of the playoffs. Why don't we talk next week about the NHL, the draft lottery? We can kind of dive into that and just kind of see. With the Islanders and who they're going to pick and whatnot, and we can recap round 2. If there's any more NFL talk, we'll bring that in as well.
Real quick, is there a Celebrini this year?
Not quite.
Not quite?
No, it's considered a bit of a weaker draft. I think it's Schaefer who's projected to go number 1, but we can talk more about that next week and kind of maybe dive into it a little more. That would be good. A little NHL draft preview, even though we're still 5 weeks away from that. So
totally.
All right, folks, thanks for listening on Spotify or on YouTube. As always, I'm Matt Parnell. He's been Lucas Fanslaw, and this has been Couchside Sports.